morning came sharp and bright. Frost webbed the window in silver threads. Eamon woke to the soft scrape of fabric on wood. Rosalind stood at the table, carpet bag open, dresses folded with slow, deliberate care. Her shawl lay on top, neat, final. "You heading somewhere?" Eamon asked. She didn't look at him. "I should," she said. "Before the hearing. Before Whitford twists things so far you can't untangle yourself from me. You think leaving saves me? It might." Her hands tightened around the shawl. "If I walk now, he'll stop trying to drag your name down with mine." Eamon stepped closer. "Storms don't choose men. Men choose in storms. I've already chosen." "You shouldn't," she whispered. "Not for me." She closed the bag. The clasp clicked, a soft, cold sound. "I won't watch you lose your standing," she said. "If I'm gone, the worst he can say is that I ran." Eamon's voice roughened. "I don't care about standing." "You should." He almost reached for her, almost, but the restraint shook him harder than touching her would have. "You're not a burden," he said. "I have been one most of my life," she answered. "To my father, to strangers, to Whitford's pride." Her throat tightened. "I won't be one to you." "You're not," Eamon said, firm, carved, final. She hesitated, fingers resting on the carpetbag handle. Her eyes drifted across the room to the kettle he kept warm through every storm, his coat drying by the stove, the shirt she had mended. These small, ordinary things felt steadier than anything she had known in years. "When you paused at the door last night," she said quietly, "were you afraid I'd be gone?" Eamon swallowed once. "Yes." The honesty struck her like heat after long cold. Her breath shivered. "I didn't think anyone feared losing me anymore." He stepped forward then, slow, measured. "You're not walking out of here alone." Her fingers loosened. The bag sagged against the table. Then she let it fall shut. "I'll stay," she whispered. Something eased in Eamon's shoulders, not all at once, but enough that she saw the depth of what that choice meant to him. Outside, the wind settled. Inside, something steadier than weather took root. The town hall filled early. Folks came wrapped in wool and curiosity. Men lined the back wall. Women took the benches. Young faces pressed against the doorway. Alder Ridge loved a hearing almost as much as it feared the truth it might bring. Rosalind walked beside Eamon, posture straight, eyes calm. She wore her mended dress, the best she owned, neat, patched with care. Hurt clung to her, but dignity steadied her steps. Whitford stood near the front, shoulders stiff, jaw tight. Pride sat on him like a coat too heavy for the weather. His eyes flicked from Rosalind to Eamon, then away, as if looking at them too long made the crack in his reputation wider. Sheriff Bracken raised a hand. "We're here for clarity," he said. "Keep your tempers." He nodded to Whitford. Whitford stepped forward, voice loud enough to claim the room. "I brought Miss Hale west, paid for her passage. She misrepresented herself. Weak. Unfit. She abandoned her duty and ran to Pike's cabin. This," he held up the letter, "proves her debt." Bracken took the paper without comment. "Miss Hale," he said. Rosalind rose. Her voice carried farther than Whitford's, not with volume but with steadiness. "I came west honestly. Mr. Whitford judged me in one glance. He told me to walk to town alone, in a blizzard." A murmur rolled through the room. "I didn't sign his letter," she said. "I signed nothing." Whitford scoffed. "A liar fights hardest when cornered." Mrs. Trumbull stood from the back. "I saw him send her off," she said, like he was done with her the moment she stepped down. Young Greeley, the telegraph boy, raised his hand. "The signature don't match, not even close." Whitford's face went pale, then red, then pale again. Pride battled panic in his eyes. Bracken set the forged letter flat on the table. "I've heard enough," he said. "Miss Hale owes you nothing. You cast her out. That ends your claim." Whitford's mask cracked. "You've no idea what you cost me," he hissed. Bracken didn't flinch. "I'm siding with Daylight, Garrett, and Daylight's unkind to liars." A ripple of laughter, small, cautious, moved through the crowd. Whitford spun toward Eamon. Fury shook him. "You'll regret taking what's mine." Eamon rose, slow, steady. "She was never yours." Whitford hesitated, fear crossing his face like a shadow thrown by a fast cloud, then lunged for the door and slammed it behind him. Silence settled. Not the heavy kind, the clean kind that follows judgment. People rose in clusters. Some nodded to Rosalind now, small acknowledgments, apologies without words. Rosalind stood alone for a moment, breath steadying. Then she spoke softly, to herself, but loud enough for Eamon to hear. "His shame is his to carry, not mine." Outside, pale winter light waited for them. Cold, but honest. They stepped into thin winter sunlight. The street was nearly empty, just a few watchers pretending not to watch. Cold light pooled across the boardwalk, honest and unforgiving. Rosalind paused near the old cottonwood at the end of the boardwalk. She placed her hand against the bark, steadying herself. Her fingers trembled once, small but true, before she drew a slow breath and stilled them. Eamon waited beside her, silent as timber, giving her room to reclaim her footing. She looked down the long road leading out of Alder Ridge, white, open, a clean escape. Then she looked toward the ridge where the Pike cabin stood, a dark, familiar shape against the pale horizon. Two paths, one quiet, one precarious, both honest. "I don't know what I'm supposed to feel," she said. "You're not supposed to feel anything," Eamon replied. "Feel what comes." A long breath left her, misting in the cold. "You could still walk away," he said, softer now. "No shame in wanting a simpler road." Something shifted in her posture, small but final. "The last clean start I took nearly killed me." "Not every door leads to a storm," he said. "Yours didn't," she answered. "Yours opened." Eamon looked at her then, really looked, and the composure he always wore slipped a fraction. A shadow of fear crossed his features, thin but deep. Fear of hope. Fear of losing her before he'd truly found her. Rosalind saw it, and that seeing was enough to anchor something inside her. "When you paused at the door last night," she said quietly, "I thought maybe you were afraid I'd be gone." He swallowed once. "I was." Wind brushed across the snow, shifting it in soft, restless patterns. "I've been alone a long time," she whispered. "I didn't think someone could want me to stay." He stepped closer, slow, steady. "Stay, then." She moved toward him until their shoulders touched. Just that, nothing more. Enough to speak for her. They walked to the wagon side by side, the silence between them warmer than the sun climbing the ridge. Winter waited on the horizon, but its sharpness no longer felt like the only truth. Something else had taken root. Quiet, stubborn, sure as thaw. A mile outside town, Eamon slowed the horses. Then he stopped them altogether beneath a stand of bare aspens. Quiet gathered there, thin, cold, expectant. Rosalind looked at him. "What is it?" Eamon stepped down, boots crunching in the crusted snow. He came around to her side and offered his hand. She took it. They stood together in the hush, their breaths drifting like smoke in the still air. No wind, no voices. Only the soft creak of harness leather settling. "You asked me to stay," she said. "I did." "And you meant it." "I did," he whispered. He lifted a hand, slow, careful, as though approaching something sacred. His fingers brushed a strand of her hair back from her cheek. She leaned into the touch, almost without knowing she had. He rested his forehead against hers, a meeting of breath before a meeting of mouths. Then he kissed her. Tender, steady, sure. A kiss like a man choosing warmth after too many winters inside himself. Her hands found the front of his coat, fingers curling in the wool, not from fear, but from belonging. The cold around them faded, not gone, but second to the quiet heat between them. When they parted, their foreheads stayed touching. "We'll face what comes," Eamon murmured. "Together," she said. They climbed back into the wagon, shoulders brushing in a way that needed no explanation. The ridge ahead no longer looked cold, just waiting. Snow thinned along the southern slopes when Eamon rode into town to speak with Sheriff Bracken. Winter wasn't finished, but it had loosened its grip on the valley. "Need a witness," Eamon said when he reached the office. Bracken raised a brow. "Quiet or loud?" "Quiet." 2 mornings later, Bracken rode up to the Pike place with a small Bible and a solemn expression. Frost clung to his coat. The air held that thin stillness that comes before spring makes its first true claim. Rosalind stepped onto the porch wearing her best mended dress. It wasn't fancy, just clean, patched with care, and honest. Wind lifted a loose edge of her shawl before settling it again. They stood facing each other before the cabin door, the valley stretching wide behind them. Bracken opened the Bible. "Marriage is simple," he said. "Two people meaning their words." He turned to Rosalind. "Do you take this man, not as shelter but as partner, through seasons that test bone and seasons that test heart?" "I do," she said. Her voice was quiet, but steady as thawed earth. Bracken looked to Eamon. "And do you take this woman, her grit, her storms, her strength, as your own?" "I do." Bracken closed the Bible. "Then it's done." Eamon stepped forward and lowered his brow to hers, a vow older than scripture, older than frontier law. She closed her eyes, letting the warmth of that touch sink deeper than words. The wind shifted through the pines, like a witness older than any man. Some vows belong under church roofs. Others belong to open sky and honest ground. This one belonged to the ridge. Rosalind slipped her hand into Eamon's. His fingers closed around hers, firm and certain. They stood that way a while, letting the silence bless what had been spoken. Years moved slow and honest across the Pike place. The cabin grew. First a second room, then a wider porch, then a larger stove that kept the cold at bay even in the hard months. Smoke rose steady each morning, the kind of smoke that tells a valley a home is tended, not merely survived. Rosalind kept a stubborn garden that pushed through frost every spring. Carrots, beans, 2 rows of potatoes. Nothing grand, but steady. Eamon worked the fence lines with the patience of a man who finally understood the worth of shared quiet. Whitford's name faded. Pride doesn't keep a ranch alive. Work does. Truth does. Winter remembers the choices a man makes, and so does a town. Sometimes travelers asked how their life began. "A storm brought me," Rosalind would say. "Kindness kept me." And Eamon always gave the same answer. Storms don't choose men. Men choose in storms. On evenings when the sky bruised purple and the mountains softened into shadow, they sat on the porch with their chairs angled toward the valley, not speaking, not needing to. The wind moved through the pines in long, low breaths. Coyotes called far off. The world around them felt wide but not empty. 2 people once pushed around by storms had found a ridge where the wind carried their names gently. No storm lasts forever, but some storms remake a life. This one had done exactly that.